no one's coming.
Right.
Nobody's coming. There's nobody coming to the rescue. Like I either wake up tomorrow and I'm miserable, or I do something about it so I can wake up tomorrow and not be miserable. It's on me. So I think that victim mentality comes from when people are like, I'm gonna cry wolf until somebody comes and rescues me.
Yes.
And it's like people that know real trauma know that nobody's coming and nobody gives a shit.
And welcome to the One Shot Podcast. As you'll notice, I'm bringing us in today.
Yeah. Tybo is out.
Because our fearless leader, Ty, who typically does these intros, is out today. It feels kind of good.
Does it feel good?
It feels
You've
good.
been waiting for this moment.
I'm in the captain's chair
You
today.
are, yeah. He'll be jealous.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And our guest today, let's see if I don't screw this up. Our guest today is Sean Rodgers, who is the CEO of F&G Academy. He's a former Green Beret. And he's also the author of potentially one of the wildest books you'll ever read. But it's a true story, all a true story. And it's called Rising Above, a Green Beret's story of childhood trauma and ultimate healing. And I teased it right there. Today's story is going to blow everybody's mind. And it's going to be highly encouraging because of where Sean is today. But it's going to be dark at times. And we're going to go back and we're going to relive some things that Sean had to go through. But I think you're going to be blessed at the end of this because of the spirit of this person that we're talking to today. Yeah. Sean, how are you, man?
Good. Thanks for that intro, man. That was great. You can tell that you don't run that normal.
All right. Stop the podcast. We're done. We're done. We're out. It's all downhill from here. So anyway, Sean. So like I said, we teased it, and we want to jump into it, man. And like I said, your childhood is one for the record books, and so let's start at the beginning, where you're from, what life was like. Start us from the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm from Phelan, California. So it's a small desert town outside. Most people, if they know the area at all, they know Hesperia, Victorville. So it's a pretty remote desert. A lot of drug use, a lot of meth, going on. It was kind of normal for there to be like fires off in the distance when meth trailers blow up. Wow. So it was kind of that area. It was just so remote. And so how we ended up getting there was my grandparents actually, they owned a company in Ontario, California called Pomona Valley Forklift. And for whatever reason, I never asked my grandpa, but he decided he was going to buy some property in Phelan. And Phelan, like at the time, there was just nobody there. So I don't know if he was using it, if he maybe wanted for storage or what. But so anyway, because of that property, all my family just seemed to just live off that property. So it was like he bought it for whatever reason. I have no idea. And turns out like my aunts ended up living and my uncles lived on that property. I lived on this property. So it's like we all just kind of congregated in this like small desert town because that's what he purchased. And so that's where I grew up. And it was kind of, I would never go back. I actually went back because we're doing kind of like a mini documentary for my second book release, and nothing's changed. It's kind of crazy. You think like property values and we do real estate, investing a little bit. And then to see that it not only has it not improved, it's gotten worse. I've never seen a place like that. I've never seen, where you go back and it's just like, it's going down and it started off bad and it's getting worse. So, I guess the point of like that, I try to like paint that picture of the remoteness of it was because as a kid, we're really just left to our own devices. I mean, when it's like, so to give you an example, you have like a couple main roads. So there'll be like Main Street, that's a paved road. And then, Johnson Road. And so north and south and east and west running main road. Off those main roads is how you get to everybody's houses. But those the dirt roads from the main roads to your house is like 2 miles of washboard roads, and they'll destroy your car. So cops don't want to go down there, and unless you live down there, you don't want to go down those roads. So we're just off in this remote area and nobody wants to come out to where we're at. So we just had free reign to do whatever we wanted. And it was kind of it was like living in, the Wild West. We just, anything went. We would, at a young age, I was doing illegal things that, I should have never been doing. And I just thought that was normal.
So what age are you talking here? So is it just mother and father, or is it just, what's the family dynamics at this time?
Okay. So sorry. I'll break this down a little bit more, but so my dad left when I was 1. So at this time I'm living with my mom, my older brother, and my younger sister. And when I was real young, I think probably around like 8, my mom got into a car accident. This is my recollection of when things kind of went south with my mom was the car accident. So I kind of have vague memories of not ever having money, but like at least she went to work. So there was like a short memory I have that she actually went and had a job. And that was like a highlight in my life, was when my mom worked. But then shortly after that, we got into a car accident and I was in the car. I woke up in the hospital, and she had back problems from that. And that started an opioid use that still hasn't stopped to this day. So that's when things started to get really bad. And so she just started going through like a series of boyfriends, and each boyfriend was its own like negative influence. So, we had them beat us. We've had them, one alcoholic. I watched him beat my brother with a phone book. I got shot at. The first time I got shot at was like, I was like 8 years old. And my mom was just like driving like a maniac down this dirt road. And I remember sitting in the back seat, just looking out the back window, and my brother was next to me. And this guy was chasing us, and I didn't know what was happening. And so I'm just watching this guy chase us down this desert road. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And then so we get to the house. He stops chasing us. We get to the house, and my brother's like super upset with my mom. And I was like, what's going on? And then he tells me, he's like, look, and he shows me the car, and the top of the roof was split down the middle. And then there was a hole in the trunk of the car that was right where, so the bullet should have went into my chest, but thank God it hit the emblem of the car and deflected down into the trunk. Wow. So I'm not sure what she was doing to that guy that had him, shooting at us. But so I can only assume that she ripped him off or something. So from there, it was just a series of, it just never stopped. It was my growing up was like a stress factory. And I was constantly stressed out of my mind. So like one instance, I remember coming home and her car was actually inside the house. So, and the house at that time belonged to this guy who was an alcoholic. So I knew as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is not going to end well. I have no idea what he's going to do in retaliation for this. And she just left the car. It was sitting like canted up like this. And then if you go inside the house, which is just a little trailer, but you could see the front bumper protruding into the living room. And I was like, what are we going to do? Like when he gets home, I don't know if he's going to murder us. I don't know what he's going to do. And then, so I ended up just like, I couldn't breathe and was basically having panic attacks at a young age. And then he finally got home. And the scariest thing was that that night he didn't do anything. He walked into the front door and he just walked past me like I wasn't there. He didn't do anything. And that was terrifying. And then another day I come home, I don't know how long, shortly after that, I come home and the front door of the house, the front door of the house is covered in bullet holes. So he had just took his shotgun and started, hang on, let me just shut this off. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So he just took his shotgun and started pumping it, shots into the front door. And apparently his logic behind that was that no one's going to disrespect his house but him. And if you're going to destroy his house, he's just going to do it himself. And so he just started shooting the front door full of bullet holes. Wow. And then, man, there's so many stories. I got one of the guy that lived down the street. He's in jail for life now for murder. So he was staying with us. And one day he asked me, he's like, hey man, I need you, because I had a motorcycle. This is when I was a little older. And he's like, hey, I need you to take your motorcycle and go to this spot. And there's a bag on the side of the road. I had to dump it because the cops were chasing me. He's like, I need you to go pick up that bag. And I was like, all all right, Chris he's telling me to go do it, so I'm gonna go do it. So I go pick up the bag, and when I give it to him, I see him pulling like guns, and he's got drugs and guns in his bag. And I was like, oh my God, dude, like I could have went to jail. Like, how do I know that the cops weren't watching that bag, waiting for him to come back and get it, and he sent me to go get it?
Yeah.
So it's just like things like that were a constant. It was always something. And of course I would run away from home constantly, but the cops would just bring me back. And that was kind of like the unfortunate round robin of my life. It was, insane amounts of trauma and like difficulty. And then I would try to get away because I had good family members that were willing to take me in. But every time I ran away to their houses, it'd be an hour or two. The cops are at my house or at their house, like, hey, he's got to go back.
Is that because your mother's calling to find you? Yeah. Okay. All right.
So she's very manipulative, and she made life hard, not just for me and my brother and my sister, but for everybody around her. Like all my family members were haunted by my mom because, and my grandparents as well. Like, so what she would do is at the time, landlines were still a big thing. Like everyone relied on their landlines. So she would call your phone over and over and over and over and over until finally you answer because you want your phone to stop ringing. Because what's your other options? Like you unplug it and then you miss something important. Right. So she just like harasses you through the cell phone through the landline. So then you answer the phone and you're like, okay, well maybe I could talk some sense and I can get her to stop. But if she's on a feud, after, whatever she's taken and she's just losing her mind, all of a sudden she'll be at your front door losing her mind. And that's even worse than over the phone. So you're constantly like playing this game of trying to like appease her to keep her away. There's been times where she's like, she almost ran me over with a car. She tried to hit me with a car. And that time I called the cops on her. I was older at that time. I went back to visit. So that time I was like 16, I think. And I went back to visit and I was staying at my grandparents' house and she comes up and just punches it and tries to hit me with the car.
Wow.
And so I called the cops and I was like, hey, I'm done with this. Like, it's time. Like, she needs to go to jail.
Yeah.
And she's been in and out of jail a bunch. But so the cops look at the tire marks and it's all dirt. It's a desert. So it's like, you can't hide it. So my footprints are in the ground and they could see my footprints and then they could see the car peel out because she's obviously denied it. And so they took her to jail. And then my grandma calls me. I was like, finally, and that was like the best thing growing up is like when she would go to jail, because like that was reprieve for everybody, until she got out. And then my grandma calls me and we all love, my grandma passed away, my grandpa passed away. We all love them. They were amazing people, but she was so protective over her kids, so she called me, she said, hey, you can't press charges against your mom. And I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, she's tormented everyone our entire lives. Like, why are you protecting her? And she's like, it's family. You can't do that. She's like, and on top of that, it's just going to cost us money because your mom's not going to pay for anything. So now we're going to have to pay for anything that like any expenses that she gets.
All right.
I was like, so fine. I was like, fine. I called the cops and I was like, I'm not going to press charges. And they're like, all right. So she just keeps getting away with it through like, it was nuts. Yeah. It just never ended.
Yeah. A lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
I think where my mind goes first is, I think about your role models or the people in your life that are supposed to guide you and lead you to, to grow into the person you're supposed to be. So we've got your father who dipped out when you were 1 year old. We got your mother who's clearly has substance abuse issues and those type things going on. You got your grandparents who seem like great people and aunts and uncles, but they're kind of all, protecting your mother. So I guess where my mind goes to first is, did you have any positive influences in your early days when you were still in the house? Was there anywhere you could look to that gave you hope, or was it just a constant beat down all the time from those that were taking care of you?
I would say that there's a mixture of that. Like my instantly, I want to say I look to me, but I can't say that because then I'm disrespecting the people that did try. And I owe it to them to, acknowledge that they tried really hard. And so I had this guy, Mike, was in my life, and Mike was he tried everything. He would always like every once in a while you like buy me, a backpack for school or some new shoes. Cause we never had clothes and we were always wearing hand-me-down stuff. And,
what did Mike
things
do?
like that.
Who was Mike in the community?
So Mike was my mom's second cousin.
Okay.
I think that's his relation. So Mike was my mom's second cousin, and he was just a great guy, and he would help me out. And he saw that we were being abused all the time, so he would try to buy me stuff. And like every once in a while, when I would run away, he'd be like, "Take me out to eat. Like, you want to get some food?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be amazing." And so when I was with him, I was like, he would get me McDonald's and stuff, and he tried really hard, but he knew, that there was only so much he could do, and my mom was just going to call the cops and get in the way of it. So anyone that tried to help, and I think people were not trying to protect my mom. They were just afraid of her, because the minute you tried to help us, she just targeted you.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to avoid her targeting them. I mean, even now to this day, like I hadn't heard from my mom in like 10 years. Wow. And when that book came out, all of a sudden I'm a target, and they think like, oh, they can get something from me now. Oh, he's doing YouTuber and has a company and has a book. So now we could take. And so my mom started harassing me, on YouTube through comments. And, anytime I did podcasts, she was like doing, comments about just nonsense. And they're still there. They just don't even make any sense. Yeah. So I still to this day, like I block her on everything, and she still tries the same techniques. The problem that she has now is that she doesn't realize that times have changed. So, harassment and trolls are part of our community. It's part of being online. It's part of our social environment. And so technology is actually caught up, and, luckily for me, it's done so for people like her that try to harass people and, torment them through social media.
It's called block this caller. That's one. That's one of the things you could do nowadays. You mentioned you had an older brother and there's a younger sister, correct?
Yes.
So through all this dysfunction, what happened at what age did your brother, how much older was he than you?
2 years older.
Okay. So when he must have left? I mean, I'm sure there's so much dysfunction. Did they end up leaving, or were you always in protection mode of your sister as well?
So it was kind of a mix. So like my brother was always trying to protect me and my sister, but then my brother, like as soon as he could, he would like live at his friend's house. Mm-hmm. So he almost never lived at home. Like, and my mom just kind of accepted that he was going to, stay at his friend's house. And then if she wanted to, she would call the cops on him, they would bring him back. But he would always be at friends. And he's like, I'm going to go every day and I'll come back at night, but I'm leaving this every single day. So he worked it to where he mostly got out. And then, but when he was home, he's in protection mode of both of us. It wasn't until he was older that he was able to do that, probably like, 15. Mm-hmm. But up until that point, we're both in protection mode of my sister, and he's in protection mode of both of us. So he did a lot of covering. And that's when the phone book guy, I think, was it him? He might've been the one that hit the guy with the phone book. So the guy was chasing me, and he was trying to come after me, and he was going to beat me up. And so I think my brother might've hit him with the phone book. But anyway, then that guy started beating on my brother. So, and then I took off, but it was always, there's always some kind of protection. Like one time they were flipping tables and going after each other and breaking everything in the house. And I was afraid that they're going to turn on my sister. I was afraid they're going to turn on me, which made me even more afraid that they're going to turn on my sister. So I just ran, in the middle of the night, I just ran barefoot to my aunt's house through the desert. And then got to her house, started pounding on the door. And as soon as she answered, I was like, you got to go get Kelsey. You got to go get her. You got to go get her. She needs help. And, they called the cops and had them go, but there was always some kind of, sibling protection going on.
What about like school or sport? Did you have anywhere to escape at all, and live somewhat normal?
No, I was in it every day, there was no escape for it. So school was an issue because when I went to school, I didn't know how to behave. So like for me, and I still do this to this day, it's kind of like develop my character is like, just like telling jokes, in the military I did it too. It was like, and when things get tough and overwhelming, you just joke your way through it. I did in the police department too. But as a kid, I would do that in school, but I didn't know. So I would get in trouble constantly. Like I didn't know how to scale it. Yeah. So if there's any opportunity for a joke, like if the teacher, if she lined me up for a joke or he lined me up for a joke, I'm taking it.
Right.
And so, because that few minutes or that few seconds of people laughing with me was they're not laughing at me.
Yeah.
So I was like, this feels good. They're laughing with me because I told a joke. They're not laughing at me anymore because I'm poor and I lie about everything, like, oh yeah, me and my family did this trip. And so I was just, I'm just like in gross clothes all the time and stuff. So I found that as my escape was to get people to laugh. Mm-hmm. The problem is that got me kicked out of school nonstop. So I was in school suspension for most of my time.
So your one outlet gets you in trouble.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And so, the principal will bring me in, and I remember, I'll never forget sitting in the principal's office, and he's like, you're going to stay in detention or I'm going to suspend you. And I was like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to get suspended. In school suspension, at least I got away. Yeah. But if they suspend me, I'm going home and I'm just staying at home. I don't want to stay home. So he's like, unless you show up for detention, because I never had a ride, so I couldn't show up for detention. So he's like, unless you show up for detention, I'm going to suspend you. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll just have to walk home. And so I'm like, probably like 12 or 13, pretty young. And so I'm like walking home. It's like 15 miles to my house in the desert. And I was just like, I'm just going to walk home after.
Yeah.
In my heart, in my mind, I was like, someone will see me and pick me
up. At the door, at the front door.
Yeah. So I just held out hope for that.
Yeah. So home life is awful. I mean, there's just no other way to describe that, what you're telling us here. School, you're constantly in trouble. There's no, the one thing that you feel like you're okay at, you're getting in trouble for. Yeah. So really there's nowhere to turn, unfortunately for you. So you keep running away, but then keep bringing back. So at what point did you finally, because you were young, at what point did you finally get away for quote unquote good? Did you finally get out of there?
Yeah. So that was kind of like an escape. That was like an escape scenario. So obviously I knew I was bound in, like, to me, 18, like the thought of waiting till I was 18, like that was, I might not make it, I might get killed by one of her boyfriends. I might do something in retaliation to one of these guys that put me in jail. I was like, I'm not gonna make it that long. So I have to get out sooner. So then at some point I was like, cause my mom used to threaten us growing up. She used to threaten me and my brother all the time. Like, oh, your dad's a terrible human being. Like she used to say, if you guys don't stop, I'm going to call him. And so we would cry and like freak out. Like, no, don't call him, because she had built him into this monster that was going to be so awful.
And you'd never met him at this point?
No.
Okay.
And then so finally I was like, you know what? Call him. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, call him. I was like, call him. Anything's got to be better than this. I was like, please call him. And so she calls him. And then, so he was like, okay, I'm going to come out and I'll meet him. And, so he flew out and met me and my brother, which is a weird thing to say, meet your kid.
Yeah.
We were like I was like 14. So my brother's probably 16, or my brother's 16. And we're meeting our dad. And I was like, yeah, this guy seems way more normal than what we're dealing with. So I was like, I'm going to your place. And I was like, can I come live with you? And he was like, yeah. So then the whole plan of escape kind of started, because I was like, well, I can't just go, because then the cops will just bring me back. So what do I have to do? So I called him and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, well, call the police here, ask them what you need to do so they don't take you back. I was like, okay. So I called the Fredonia Police Department. I was like, hey, I'm trying to like get away from my mom and go live with my dad. What do you guys need to not bring me back? Because she's going to call you and harass you. And he was like, I need you to sign. She needs to sign a letter giving away custody to your dad. And this is what it needs to say. And so I wrote down exactly what he said it needs to say. And then initially I was like, my plan was I'm going to cut out the signature block of like a school form and then have her sign the school form. And then I'll be like, oh, and then she actually signed, because I knew there's like no way she's going to sign this form. So then, like, leading up to getting this form signed, I wanted to get everything in place because I knew, like, once she realized I was actually going, she would change her mind. So I started packing up my stuff slowly. So I left my room like dirty the way it usually would be. And then I started packing up all the stuff I really wanted and hiding it in my closet. And then I called my cousin, was like, hey, as soon as everything's ready to go, I need you to pick me up in the middle of the night. And she was like, okay, I got you. And I was like, cool. So then I called my dad. I was like, hey, I'm going to get this thing signed. As soon as I get it, I'm going to need a plane ticket. He's like, okay, I got you. So I had my whole plan lined out. All my stuff's packed. And I was like, now's the hardest part. I got to get her to sign this note. So I tried to cut out one and she immediately noticed, obviously. And she was like, I'm not signing this. Like, what the heck? So I was like, all right, plan B. It's really easy to make my mom mad. So I was just like, I hate living with you and you're the worst mom I've ever. And I don't want to do this anymore. And you need to let me go. So she just started yelling at me and throwing shoes at me. That was always her thing. She kept like a pile of shoes.
Yep.
Who was it that joked? Was it Eddie Murphy that joked?
Yeah, man. Like, yeah. The black mom. The black mom. My mother was too. Threw every damn thing at us. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I laughed so hard when he said it because my mom would have a pile of them. Like they could be shoes that you haven't worn in years. Like, and she would just keep them piled up in front of her door.
Freaking like so boomerangs. Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And you just dodging shoes. So anyway, I start getting her mad at me, and then she starts picking up the shoes and hucking them at me, and she's getting escalated. And I was like, sign the note and I'll leave you alone. I was like, just sign it. Like, we don't need this. And she was like, you know what? Fine. I'll sign it. That note isn't going to do anything. It's just a note. You're a kid. Like, what is it going to do? So she signs it. And then I put my plan in action.
I want to take a quick break and thank our partners, Sleep Number, and highlight a couple things they're doing. Guys, these Sleep Number beds are unreal. The technology that they've created, the feedback that it gives you on your sleep. I've got the app opened up right here. They tell you things like your heart rate variability, your breathing rate, all these type metrics and feedback to give you so that you can improve your quality of sleep. They're all over the place. You can go and check yourself out, a Sleep Number store, wherever you live. Go to sleepnumber.com as well. They've got great resources on there. We just talked about this not too long ago. They have a whole blog section, all these articles, things that you can improve your health. Sleep Number is definitely changing the game when it comes to bedding. So get yourself to Sleep Number, get yourself to sleepnumber.com and check them out. Now back to the episode. And how old were you at this time? You said 16?
So, yeah, I was about 16.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, that's something.
16 years old. So, all right, so you start your life in New York. You're with your dad now. Where'd you go from there? What happened next?
So I thought I was in the clear. My dad owned a restaurant out in New York, well respected in the community, and things were going good. Like, they bought me new clothes, so I went to school like all new wardrobe.
Oh, you were styling then, huh?
I was
styling. You got there?
Yeah.
What year was this? Hold on. What year was this?
This was 2000. Oh man. So I graduated in 2005. So like 2002.
Okay. So we're talking like Jinko jeans and Affliction shirts. That's the style we're talking here.
No. So out back east there, out in New York there, the thing at the time was American Eagle.
American Eagle. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. What part of New York were you in?
So I was in Fredonia, so south of Buffalo.
South of Buffalo.
Minutes.
Okay. All right.
So you and I are about the same age. So yeah, American Eagle, maybe the double shirt, right?
Yeah,
with the choker necklace and the spiked hair. Yeah.
The
cargo
boots
shorts.
that they had, the American Eagle boots with the red laces.
Oh yeah,
those are the flyest things.
Oh yeah, I bet there's some old pictures of me with that exact wardrobe.
Yeah. So this was completely new for me because in California you don't dress like that. In California, It's like famous stars and straps, and Travis Barker's brand. The flat build hat. It's the total. You know, and the crazy thing is, we went to the desert to do that, back to Phelan to do that documentary. It was like straight up same style.
Man,
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed, huh?
Nothing's changed. They're dressed the same way with the same fluffy shoes on and the same flat bill hat. And I was like, man, these guys.
They're stuck in time.
Yeah, they're stuck in time out in that desert. So I went to new wardrobe. I'm a new man, and I go to school, and like the wealthy kids like trying to befriend me and stuff. And I was like, this is crazy. They're like, oh, your dad owns Barker Brew Company. And I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, my dad owns this and her dad owns that. And I was like, oh, you guys are like the community of your parents own things in this town. I was like, this is this is weird. And it was cool. I ended up not clicking up with those guys because they were a little too fine line for me, but it felt good. And then that only lasted a year, because then my dad was like, we're moving to Colorado. And I was like, well, I'm not going. I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm just going to stay here and finish school. And I was like 17. And then my buddy Billy, his mom was like, you could stay here as long as you need to, and as long as you're going to school. She said, the minute you drop out of school or don't go to school, you're out of my house. And I was like, thank you. That's all I need. I'm in my senior year of high school. Like, I just need to finish school, and then I'm out. I'm going to college. I'll do something else, but I got to finish school. So she let me crash in her son's room. And then Billy, he was always at his friends. He was never there anyway. And she held up her end of the bargain. She was like, she never, when you house hop, you always get that feeling like when you overstayed your welcome. You could tell, right? Parents start to like, what's going on? What's your situation again?
Right.
And you're like, crap, like it's over. She was never that way.
You said that. You know what? You said that. Like when you house hop, like
all of us did.
Like
that.
we all did.
Yeah, I know exactly.
So casual.
When I was house hopping in my 15s, yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
When I stayed the night at my friend's house, and his mom was like, "Yeah, it's time for your ass to go."
So that's a good point. I don't really realize that that's not a normal thing to do.
So you have all this going on, and most seniors in high school at this point, juniors in high school, they're starting to think about the next step. They're starting to think about what does the future look like. Finally, it sounds like you have a little, even though you're house hopping, at least you have a cool host. So now maybe you're able to start thinking about the future a little bit. What was the future? At this point, what were you thinking? Okay, I want to go do this.
So at this point I was like, I just wanted to graduate high school. So up until this point, so like in Phelan, there was no chance of me graduating. I was failing every class. There was no chance. When I got to New York, they made me redo 10th grade, which was a huge blow to my self-esteem and my ego. And I was like, this sucks. But I got it back together. I got my senior year, and I was like, I'm going to graduate. My grades I'd gotten up, but my senior year, I started meeting some college kids, and they just loved the party. And so it was like they at noon, they'd be like hanging out, drinking beers. And I was like, this is the best life ever. So I was like, I want to drink beers at noon. So I started I would go to the first half of school, and the second half I'd go to my college buddies' houses, and they'd be like, they call me regents. And I don't think I've ever told this story before, but in Fredonia, they have if you get certain, I end up getting it, but if you pass enough testing, you get a regent's diploma. And so I was at a party, and one of our friends, she's hilarious, and she was in college, and she was standing next to me, and this girl was flirting with me, and I was flirting with her, and then she was like, "Oh, what's your degree in?" And my friend goes, "Regent's diploma." I was like, shut up. So she was diming me out for being in high school. So after that, they just started calling me Regents. So like, what up, Regents? So I'd walk in the door at noon, and they'd be like, Regents. I was like, my people. And so anyway, the point of that was I had missed so many days of school of the back half that I had probably like 4 months left of school, and I couldn't miss one more day or I was going to not graduate. So that's when I had to lock it in. And I was like, okay, I can't let my dad think that I couldn't make it on my own. And I was like, I have to prove to everybody that I don't need them, because I told them I don't need them. And I believe that to be true. So that's when I locked it in and was like, got my act together, finished school, graduated. And then from there I was like, well, I guess you do the college thing. So that's what I started doing. I signed up for a junior college and started doing that. And from there my senior year, I met a girl, and then we got serious. And as I was in college, her grandma passed away, she was an amazing woman. But her grandfather owned this company called Hughes Co. And so I didn't know anything about this when we were dating, but, and we've been dating for a while now, and her grandma passed away, and all of a sudden they inherited what was left of her grandma's money, which was in like $6.5 million. And so, we go from like, I have no money. I'm just getting through, trying to get, make something of my life. And all of a sudden she's like, hey, do you need just take my card. You can have my card. She's like, what do you need? And it's like, just paying for everything. And so I was like, well, I don't have any bills to pay because you just keep paying everything. Because money just became like not an issue. And then so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, what would just be like some wild thing to go try and do that's really hard? And so I was like, I'll be an actor. so
What?
Yeah.
No background in acting.
Yeah.
No thespian background whatsoever.
No.
But here we go.
I was like, let's send that. So that's kind of been the theme of my life is I'll just be like, oh, this sounds like a good idea. I'm going to full send with everything I have. And so we ended up moving to Los Angeles, and then I got an agent. I got SAG eligible. I was showing up on, I was on like, what was that band? I was in like a music video, and then I was in some like kids movie, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is cool. And so I'm living in a studio apartment in.
Hold on, wait. There's a lot of places I think I thought this story was gonna go.
Not there.
Yeah.
Not there. LA
Acting was not one of them.
Yeah.
Like kickboxing.
This is a turn I didn't see.
Jiu-jitsu tournaments or something.
Because I'm trying to figure out, okay, where does the Green Beret part come in? You decided to go act.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, just why not? And so like think about it. So think about the dynamic here. So now acting is this like really hard thing because you have to pay your bills, but then you have to go to auditions at noon, 1 in the afternoon. So like it doesn't make sense. Right. The whole career is like completely doesn't make any sense. So, but when your fiance is like a millionaire, it's like, why not?
Right.
Yeah.
Why not?
Sure.
I can go to an audition at noon. I can go at 1. I can go at middle of the night. I could work this set for almost no money for 3 days if it's going to give me my SAG card, which it did. So like, and I'm living in a nice apartment in Sherman Oaks. So I was like, so I became addicted to it, and I started doing acting classes like nonstop. I read every book. I just became obsessed. And so I'm getting pretty decent at it. And then, so then I come home one day and she starts picking a fight with me, and she's like, you know what? You just need to leave. And I was like, well, what do you mean I just need to leave? And she's like, just go to your brother's house. So I was like, all right, fine. So I go to my brother's, and I was like, what am I doing? And I was like, I'm going home. And we just got married.
Oh, you're married at this point.
Yeah. So we moved to LA. I'm doing the acting thing, and then we get married. So we actually fly back to New York to get married. And then we go back to LA as a married couple. Like 3 months in, she picks this fight with me. I go to my brother's house for the night, but then I decide to come home in the middle of the night. So when I come home, she's in bed with another dude.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's when I was like, oof, I thought about like hurting him real bad, and, but I didn't. And I was like, you know what? It's not worth it. So that was the one part, which was really shocking to me, was the one moment in my life when I was like actually depressed. And I thought that was really weird, because I was like, after all I've been through, how is cheating something that like threw me through a mental and emotional loop that I couldn't handle? And so I'd spent the next like 4 days just drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. I didn't even smoke, and I never smoked since, but I would just smoke cigarettes and drink. And I was just like on this, I got, tattoo on my neck, which I ended up having cut off because I didn't like it. And I was just doing like reckless things. I was trying to like destroy myself. And I realize now that was in a depression. And then from there, that depression kind of, I hit a point where I was like, I can't let a woman do this to me after all, what my parents did and everything I've gone through. Like, I need to be better than that. So that was the moment I had where I was like, I'm going to make something of myself, and I'm going to make her regret that. And that's what pulled me out of the depression, is it gave me purpose. It was like, I become so good of a man that she regrets that decision for the rest of her life. And that's what I did.
All right. I want to take a quick minute to talk about our partner, Choctaw Casino and Resort. We are really, really humbled and grateful to be a partner for them. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you've heard how great the resort is there, how great the casino is, the new expansion. They've doubled in size, 3,000 new slots. They've got unbelievable sports bar. They've got unbelievable restaurants, unbelievable movie theaters, arcades for kids. It is endless, the things that they've not only improved but added. But it's just the experience that they provide is second to none. Choctaw Nation has done an incredible job with the community, with philanthropy, with support. They have just done incredible things. So we are extremely humbled and grateful to partner with Choctaw Casino and Resort. Make sure, I know you know it, but it's just a short drive up 75. Go check them out. And now back to the episode.
So you start breaking out of this this depression. You start saying, and the way you phrase it is, you found a purpose again, that you're going to be a man that she'll regret doing that too. So where do you go from there? You're at what, 22, 23 at this point?
Yeah. Well, I was I think 21, 22 at this point. Yeah, probably 22.
Yeah.
But real quick, one thing I thought of during a little break was the actor thing. Cause looking at it, it's really strange. It's a really wild thing to think about. Like, why does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But I think that the reason that was such a great place for me, and now I'm kind of getting back to that in a way through the YouTube and through doing content and potentially a Netflix show or hosting a Netflix show. Waiting to hear back on that. But it's growing up the way I did. I was able, the reason I was able to get through it and what helped me get through it a lot was daydreaming.
Yeah.
And kind of living in the clouds and I use my imagination to create better places for myself. Mm-hmm. And so the whole idea of the acting thing, it just seemed like the natural escapism that I've already been practicing my whole life. Mm-hmm. And it was a way to earn something that's difficult. Yeah. So I've always had this desire to do things that are notoriably, that's not a word, but are universally, we'll say, accepted as difficult. They're doing pro football. No one's everybody knows that professional football is insanely difficult, if not nearly impossible to get into. I needed something like that, and that's the same kind of connotation that acting has. Being an actor is it's a catch-22 to even try to break into that business, and you're almost a psychopath to even try because it doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the draw for me in that time for acting. Yeah. And it's that's the sense that it made to me without even me realizing it. And that's also what leads into the Green Beret side is when you get into the military, there's a thing that is so hard to break into that instantly everyone knows you did it. Mm-hmm. And in the military, that's special forces. If you play sports, professional sports, and I was thinking about this today, every single profession has that tip of the spear. That's right. Hardest echelon. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And some of us we just want that. We want that notoriety. We want that feeling. We want to know that we're one of the boys that are in that small club and that we made it, and that's in my young mind, acting was the only thing I could think of that had that, because I'm thinking of society as a whole, and society as a whole appreciates the small amount of people that become actors. Yeah. I didn't realize at the time that you don't have to think of society as a whole. You just have to narrow into a career path, and then that career path will then have that high echelon of people.
Right. So what led to the military then? How did you get on that path?
So the military is another not funny story. It was I decided I wanted to do something else. So the minute my ex cheated on me, it was and I decided I was going to do something better with my life. I lost that addiction for the acting, which is crazy because I was enslaved to it. I loved it so much. I spent every minute sending out headshots or at acting class or just working tirelessly. I treated it like an absolute obsession. Mm-hmm. everything I did was for acting. And so when she did that, it was like, all of a sudden I felt like I could do something else again. I was like, I could pick any job again. Like I'm back in that, I hit the reset button for me. And I was like, I pick anything my heart desires. And again, I'm back in my imagination, and I'm dreaming of all the things that could make me feel good. And I was like, being a firefighter would be really cool. I'm going to go do that. So I signed up for college and started doing the prerequisites for the fire academy in Victorville, which was like confined space awareness and all these college courses I had to do. Well, the last one of that was EMT school. And in EMT school, the guy that I shared a ride with, because it was a far drive for us to go because it was in Big Bear. So we would swap. Like I'd drive one day, he would drive the next, and we'd go back and forth. And this kid's like this little skater kid, probably like 125 pounds. Like he's just small. And one day he comes up to me in class, and I'm sitting in the back, like wearing Crocs, even though we're supposed to be in boots, because I always got to be that guy that's just breaking the rules. And he's like, hey, he's like, dude, that guy wants to fight me. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, the guy up front, man, he wants to fight me. And this is like bigger dude. And I was like, he's got this army backpack. I don't know anything about the military. So I'm like, oh, he must be like a real badass. I was like, he's got an army backpack. He'd probably beat us both. But I was, I'm from the desert. I was like, I'll fight anybody. And so I was like, okay, like, well, he's not going to fight you because what's the point?
Right.
Like, no offense, dude, but you are small. Like he's just a bully. So in my head, I was like, if you're going to pick on this kid because he's so small, you're being a bully, and that pisses me off. But I didn't think that. I was like, he's not trying to fight you. He's not. There's no way. So I get up to go spit out my gum, and I'm kind of low key, just like you asked Darren, if I, do this stuff to myself. Yeah, I'm kind of checking, I want to see. So I get up to spit my gum out, and I go to the front of class, and I put my gum in the trash, and I turn around and I look at him. And in desert, that's a fight. So he looks at me, he goes, the fuck you looking at?
Yep.
And I was like, he is trying to fight.
Right.
I was like, okay.
Check that box.
I was like, all right. Well, you're not going to fight him. You're going to fight me instead. And I was like, so I'm tapping in. So I was like, all right, well, I'll see you at lunch. And he's like, all right. So we go outside. Lunch happens. I have my Crocs on, so I had to tell my buddy. I was like, what size boots you wear? He's like, a 9. I was like, give me your boots, man. I'm not going to fight in Crocs. Like,
dude, not only are Crocs nice and stylish, they're functional as well. So great choice.
Yeah, I could have turned the 4-wheel drive on the Crocs and threw that back panel up. I would have been good to go. But so he gives me his boots, and I was like, all right. So we go outside, and I'm an idiot. So I've been in a fight before. I've been in lots of fights, but one in particular, this taller kid. I went to hit him. I missed, and he grabbed my shirt and he did the hockey pullover on me.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so once he did a hockey pullover, like I had to. Luckily, he didn't just start hitting me, so I had to finish it. I figured that was the best way to get past this was to just rip the shirt completely off. And then he hit me and about knocked me out. But so I was always afraid of the hockey pullover happening on me again. So when we start a fight, I would take my shirt off. So I took my shirt off to avoid the hockey pullover again. And he gets in my face and he puts his nose like right here and he touches his nose on my forehead. And I was like, that's gross, dude. And I was like, touch people. Well, you already crossed the line. So I headbutted him. And his nose just pops open, like it just starts gushing blood. And apparently he was dating a girl in class because she just starts screaming bloody murder, which then gets the teacher to come out. And who's the only jackass without a shirt on?
Oh, yeah.
Like, obviously it was me fighting. So I get kicked out of EMT school. So I was like, dang it, man, I did it to myself again. And I got in trouble and ruined a good opportunity. I was doing good in EMT school. It was really doing well, and I was excited about it because I was really nervous about failing because it was a condensed course. So anyway, she kicks me out. She says I'm under investigation and I can't come back until the investigation's over, and you could only miss 2 days of this condensed course and you fail. So the next morning, I was like, well, I'm not becoming a loser. I was like, I got a mission, and I'm gonna get better. And I was like, I just ruined that opportunity. So I was like, I have a lot of learning and growing to do. I was like, who's going to let me do that? Who's going to kind of help me, you know, hone in myself and, you know, scrape off the rough edges and help me out. So I was like, the military, they do that for people. Those guys fight all the time, right? So the next morning I just walked in the recruiter's office and he's like, can I help you? I was like, yeah, I want to be a Ranger. I heard those guys are tough. And again, I'm just trying to jump to that high echelon. I was like, send me those guys. And he's like, all right. He's like, come back tomorrow and we'll see what you get. So came back the next morning. He's like, yeah, I got a Ranger contract. He's like, but I got bad news. I was like, what's that? And in my mind, I'm like, you give me a Ranger contract, I don't care if there's no bad news. I was like, I would have paid him for that contract. And he was like, well, they won't give me an infantry spot. There's none available. He's like, but I got a cook spot available. And I was like, a Ranger cook? I was like, that exists? And he was like, yeah. And there's this Ranger guy in the back as a recruiter. And he goes, you're going to be a cow killer. And I was like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, what? Why am I not talking to that guy? Like, well, this is a Ranger. Like, he's got the Ranger. It says Ranger on his arm. I was like, I don't know what that means, but that's the guy. Like, why am I talking? He's telling me I'm going to be a cow killer. Like, what does that even mean? And he's like, don't worry about it. He's like, you'll do like 6 months of, you'll get into Ranger Regiment. You go to airborne school. You do like 6 months to switch to infantry. No big deal. And I was like, all right, I could do 6 months anything. Horrible idea. So now all I do is coach people not to listen to your recruiter. Like, pick what you want from, you know, the start. So that I signed up. I went to cook school, learn how to flip some eggs. And then I went to airborne school. And then I went to Ranger assessment selection. I got injured in Ranger selection. They sent me to Germany. I, you know, fought to get out of that job in Germany. And then I got assigned to personal security detachment for the command sergeant major. And I loved that job. That was an awesome job. And then from there, I healed up from my injury and Ranger selection and he sent me home early from deployment, like 2 weeks early, to go to special forces selection. And I passed that the first time, passed the Q course, and then became Green Beret. So I got two deployments to Afghanistan, one as personal security for the sergeant major, and then one as a Green Beret. Got in a ton of gunfights in the second deployment, got lucky. Because, I mean, there's guys on the team that have been special forces for like 15 years, and they have the same amount of combat as I do. Like, combat's not a guarantee in special operations.
No, were you lucky? Let's go back on this. Were you, I mean, you always said you wanted the tip of the spear. So you're in Ranger school, you come back, you evidently you went to the hospital. Is a hospital in Germany that you went to heal up, or what was that?
No, so when I got a severe sprain in my ankle, so my whole ankle turned black. I was on crutches, but they just send you go to, that was in Benning,
right?
In Georgia, where they have the Ranger selection,
right?
So they put me on crutches. They told me, hey man, you're a med drop, come back when you're healed up. And then from there, they sent me to Germany as my first duty station.
Okay. So was it there that you started to think, I want to be a Green Beret? I mean, when was the thought to start to say, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be in special forces, and the Green Berets, that's where I want to go.
So immediately before I even signed up, I knew I wanted to be in special forces because at the time I wanted to be a Ranger. And then I switched because once I got to Afghanistan my first time, I started seeing Green Berets coming in, and they were getting shot up. I mean, I saw, two Green Berets coming off the bird, just dead from, multiple small arms fire. And I was like, these guys need help. These guys are getting after it. Not saying the Rangers weren't, but I was seeing the Green Berets, and I was like, these are men amongst men. I was like, those Green Berets, like, I'll never forget this one guy, and he's carrying the body of his dead friend, and he has him on a stretcher, and he's just like stone face, no expression. And I'm looking at his wrist. And so we wear these bracelets. So if you ever see his black bracelet, for the guys that we lost, and he's got like 5 of them stacked on his arm. And I'm like, this guy's already lost like at least 5 people. There's probably multiple names on each one of those bracelets. And he's carrying a dead teammate. I'm like, this dude's been through like legitimate hell. And I was like, I need to be with those guys. Like these guys are it. Like I just saw him and I was like, that is the most like hardened human being individual I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was like, if they let me in, that means something. If someone like him looks at me and says, you're good enough for us, shit, that means something. So that was my goal after that.
Yeah. So you become a Green Beret, and it's wild because we've heard your whole story here. I mean, it's crazy to think where you started to becoming one of the elite of the elite, which is just crazy. So I guess what's your opinion on, or what's your thoughts on, because you hear a couple of trains of thought from people. It's pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? Get it done. No excuses. No matter where you come from, everybody can be successful. There's that train of thought. Then there's the other train of thought where no matter what I do, these are the circumstances I was born with. There's nothing I can do about it, right? There's nothing I can do. So where do you fall based on your story, based on where you are now and where you come from? What's your opinion on that whole discussion?
And I think that's a great point, is because I just wrote a second book, and I'm Jocko's publishing company's reading it now, so hopefully they pick it up. But the whole point of that is it's called Better Broken. And people need to understand that not only can everyone achieve success, I truly believe, because of my background, that broke people who have trauma are more equipped for success.
Absolutely.
It's yeah. So true, I don't think that it's equal at all. I think it's unfair. I think the people that have trauma they have an unfair advantage over everybody else.
That is good. Say that again. Say that again.
People with trauma have an unfair advantage over everybody else.
Wow.
And the only problem is that no one's told them before. They don't realize it yet. And I've experienced it, not because I knew beforehand or because someone came and told me and was like, hey man, it's part of my personality to kind of just like send it, and see what happens and just go for it and go for it and go for it. Right. But through that way of living, I've come to realize that my biggest advantage has always been my trauma.
Did you ever have that realization in the moment going through it? Did you ever have that perspective, or is it only now looking back that you have that perspective?
It took a long time. And that's why I think it's important that we tell people with trauma that they're better, and that they're more equipped than they realize, because this isn't like some corny sales pitch. Like, this is something I had to experience over a lot of hardship. And it was through writing my first book. Like, that first book was like just getting it out for me. It was a terrifying experience. I didn't put everything into it that I wish I did. And that's why the second book is a thing. It's short and it's to the point, and it's a Hail Mary pass of get it out of my hands before I give up and I'm afraid to let it go. So that's what it was for me. But the process of writing it unpacked so much of my trauma that I had just put away and avoided and hid. And so through that unpacking, I started to realize that all the good things in my life were tied to the bad things. And so we try to compartmentalize, right? It's like just so natural. We take all the bad and we tuck it way back in here, and then we put it away in this like deep recess in the closet, and we pretend like it doesn't exist. But then we don't realize that there's so much good attached to those things that we just pack those into the closet, and we're pretending like all our determination and all the good things don't exist too. So we're not using the tools that we gained from all the hardship. We're packing it all away because we're so afraid of the pain that we'd rather be worse off than have to face it. And then, because it's really hard, it's terrifying. It's hard to look at it and be like, man, this really affected me in a horrible way. The trauma was terrible. But once you look at it, then you look past like, oh man, that's why I'm so determined. That's why I don't give up. That's why I'm stubborn. Like, it came from this.
You know what? You said something earlier in the conversation that we were having about you wanted to give people credit, because there were people, I think Ben asked the question of was there a bright light that was there, and you said you don't want to not mention people that were in your life that were positives, but a lot of this shit you went through by yourself. Like there was it was some dark desert nights where you're going through all this trauma and you had to deal with this on your own. And and when you're alone, and I've gone through this in particular in my own life, is when you're alone and there's no one to save you, it's either, there's nowhere else to go. You got to save self. And you got to look at yourself in the mirror and go, shit, hey, ain't nobody else coming there's nobody that's coming to the rescue. Here it is. And I think that's what shaped your life through the most part of from day one.
100%. It's such a valuable point that you make, because like people don't, for me personally, is like no one's coming.
Right.
Nobody's coming. There's nobody coming to the rescue. Like I either wake up tomorrow and I'm miserable, or I do something about it so I can wake up tomorrow and not be miserable. It's on me. So I think that victim mentality comes from when people are like, I'm gonna cry wolf until somebody comes and rescues me.
Yes.
And it's like people that know real trauma know that nobody's coming and nobody gives a shit. So you could sit there, you can cry wolf until you starve to death.
Oh man, we got to bottle that up, brother. Yeah. That is awesome what you just said.
Yeah. You say
you said it. I'm just piggybacking off of you.
No, but it holds weight when people when you two talk about it because of what you've been through. And you said corny sales, but it's not corny when it comes from somebody like you, because you're not just trying to sell something that you read in a book somewhere. You live this life.
Yeah.
This holds weight when you talk about this is what you've got to do. And when Darren talks about that, and that's what I love about this is that's what encourages us is examples like you could have very easily been a broken man still to this day, but you chose to move past that. You chose to better yourself. And that's what's so encouraging about your story is that, man, you had the wildest childhood of anybody we've ever talked to.
Right. Yeah.
And now you're doing some of the most incredible things, and you are one of the most incredible people. And I think that's the inspiration. I think that's the inspiration.
That is the inspiration, yeah.
Is that it is possible. Is it hard? Is it easy? No. Is it fun? No. But it is possible.
100% possible. And I still deal with stuff. Like there's always improvement that has to happen. Like I'm always self-evaluating to see what is affecting me now that's from my past, and like, how do I fix it? How do I keep getting better? So, self-education is a big thing. Like I had to learn how to communicate with people, because the way I was taught and the way I saw communication is if we disagree, I raise my voice. And then if that doesn't back you down, then you raise your voice louder. Now I got to step up more. Yep. And so now it's like, all right, now we're peacocking and we're puffing and we have to fight. So like, that's the escalation of an argument where I come from. It's like, I feel like Darren, he's like, yeah. So like that's the process until it's like, you're gonna throw fists. Like that's how you communicate.
Right.
And so I had to relearn how to communicate with people. And it's like, wait a minute, if I just look at their perspective and try to understand where they're coming from, now I could be okay with the difference because it makes sense. Like, that's insane. It's crazy.
That's wisdom.
So did you learn that? And when you went to I know when you were in the military, that it was one thing when you were, going through that, but when you got with the Green Beret, was that something that was taught within you? Did you have someone that focused on that part of, or did you work on that part when you were with the Green Berets? Because you guys do a lot of the times when you were probably in Afghanistan, you're putting out fires. Like you're trying to settle in people with the village and all that. Yeah. So talk to me how that went down.
So that's a good point, because I found that in Afghanistan I had some of the best rapport with the Afghans. Not comparing myself to other people. I'm just saying, like, for me personally, like I found it really easy to build rapport because I was just so empathetic with people. I'm like, you're poor. I'm like, I'm poor. Like your life is third world. Like I was kind of, in that situation, like my life really sucked. I'm like, I empathize with you. Like I could feel your pain. I was like, just understand that we both have a mission, and so we both have to figure out how we're going to get to that point. But I hear you. I see what you want. I acknowledge you. Right. And like, I could empathize that, you have these issues and that my batteries could make a big impact on your day and your fighting force. And if I just give you these up to you, but you also now have to understand me. So I found that, like, empathizing with people in bad situations, I had to one up because I was like, listen, I get where they're coming from.
Right.
They just want to be heard. But then at the same time, like when I was in the Green Berets and when I was training for that, it was one of the hardest things because I would go to formation. And Green Berets are like a scattered group. Most of them are already very successful in their lives. Mm-hmm. So like you're saying in formation, these Green Berets, these are really confident dudes. And at the time there was no females allowed. So I could, when I say all men, it was all men at the time, but these are really confident guys. I mean, some of these guys, some of them were pro football players before. We've had lawyers, guys that own successful companies, and they're wanting to be Green Beret. So I'm staying in formation with these guys, and it's like, yeah, I was pro football player. Like, oh, I own this company, and they're talking about stocks, and and I'm over here like, I can't even have a conversation with these people. Like, I had to keep my mouth shut, so they're gonna find out that I don't watch the news, I don't know history, I don't know anything. I'm undereducated. I have no education. I flunked out of high school, flunked out of 10th grade, barely passed high school. I was like, I just wanted so bad to stand in a formation of those men and feel equal. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my whole struggle in before this point where I'm at now is was just wanting to stand in a group of successful men and just fit in and not feel like I had to fake it.
Right.
Yeah.
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 That was where I was.
Yeah, no, you've done that. Absolutely done that. And you talk about mission, you talk about business building. We opened up the show talking about you're the CEO of FNG. Tell us about FNG Academy, what you guys are doing, and the mission that you're on now.
Yeah, so after the military, I went police department, and then police department, I got on a small team, and I was loving it. And then George Floyd happened, and we all knew that was going to be bad. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget sitting in the team room. It was a six-man team, 2 females, and we were citywide impact. So it was just formed in Denver. It was the first citywide impact team. Mm-hmm. And our job was to go anywhere the crime was going to be. And it was amazing. We just got the promotion. It was huge because I wasn't even eligible for it yet. So it was like this big promotion, and it was incredible. And we were sitting in the team room, and one of my teammates, he goes, "Did you see?" And I was like, "No." And they showed us the George Floyd thing, and we all looked at each other and were like,
"Oh man,
fuck." Man. So we didn't know how bad it was going to get, but we knew we were all going to feel that one officer was going to make us all feel the pain of his decisions. And then the riots broke out. So because we were a citywide impact team and we were a small team, we went all over, and the riots were just insane. The riots were nuts. It was like my whole team dispersed. And it was I was just by myself. So everyone's just by themselves. We're jumping on with other cops that we don't know. We're completely mixed. We're getting Molotov cocktails thrown at us. We're getting rocks. We'd be in the streets, and I saw an officer take a boulder to the leg, and he's collapsed over, almost killed multiple times, almost got hit standing on the side of a RDV. It was a rapid deployment vehicle. It's a truck you stand on, and people were trying to hit us with their cars. So at one point I got pinned in between the truck and a car. So, but that felt like home, right? It felt like the chaos of the riots was kind of like war. But then what happened that was really bad was after the fact that the department started not having our backs as police officers. So they started not supporting us, and then we felt targeted. So then my PTSD started going through the roof. I was having panic attacks driving into work, and that's when I was like, I need to go. I can't do this. I was like, I'm not about this. I don't like going to work every day and feeling, because I have my sister is a half sister. She's half black. Mm-hmm. And so I've seen racism towards her as a kid. Mm-hmm. And at the time I thought it was because she's a little sister. She's annoying. That's why people treat her different, because she's a little annoying sister. I can't stand her either. She's always up in my business, And it wasn't until years later that I realized that it was racism. And I'm like, oh my God, members of my own family treating her different. And it's like, oh shit. So I wanted the community to know it feels weird as a cop, as a white person after George Floyd, and you're still trying to go out and do your job, and you're they're sending you to these gang neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a black community.
Right.
And it's like in the certain parts of Denver, you got Trey Crips, and it's all black gangs. So now you're pulling over people in the black community, and you could say what you're trying to do all day long. You could be like, yeah, I'm trying to find guns and dope. But at the end of the day, all that people see is a white guy pulling over a black guy. Right. And that's not good in this environment. And that looks like I'm just some racist white cop. And I fit I was shaven, so couldn't have my beard. So I'm just like this, like, I'm Mr. White Cop. That I grew up in a middle class neighborhood, and I'm going to give you a ticket. So people don't know that, like, I didn't grow up that way, but they're not going to ask me. Even my partner was black during the riots, and they're calling him Uncle Tom and race trader, and they're throwing stuff at him, and like we get in a car after that, and I see him, and it hurts him, man. Like, he joined the police department to represent the black community, to make change. He joined to be the change and to show that, hey, you're not going to treat my people the way I don't think is okay. It's not going to happen, and I'm going to make sure of it. And now he's being called an Uncle Tom and a race trader. And I was like, dude. And so I couldn't do it anymore. My PTSD was going through the roof, and I was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. So I moved on, and then from there, it was like that thing again, right? When you get that moment to pick anything. And I love that. Like, those moments for me are the best of my life. Like the picking the acting thing. When people think you're going to go this way and you go, I'm going to go over there. And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the best. So, and then picking military was that thing again. It was like off left field. But then what wasn't off left field is going from military to police. That was very much like, oh yeah, that's what you guys
that makes
do.
sense. Yeah.
That makes sense. And I hated it. I was like, I don't want to be doing what everyone thinks I want to do. So from there, I was like, I went from the police department. I was like, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to get on YouTube, and I'm going to help people, and I'm going to teach people about special forces, and I'm going to do it in front of a camera working from home so I could avoid, road rage. I could avoid rush hour traffic. I could start adjusting my lifestyle to fit my triggers from my PTSD from my childhood and my PTSD from combat. This is my chance to like change my world to fit all my triggers and to make me live the happiest life possible. Because like Darren, you're saying, like, whether you wake up miserable or you wake up happy, that's on you. It's on you. Nobody cares. You could wake up miserable and have every excuse in the book. I'm miserable because my parents sucked and this sucked and everyone sucked. But at the end of the day, you're still miserable.
You're still you're still being that victim. Oh, the world is falling, the sky is falling. No, dude, get your ass up and go. It's on you.
Right. Yeah. So what does it matter how many excuses you have? If you still wake up and you don't like where you're at. So my thing is like, I want to enjoy waking up every day. Like, I got one life, and I think I've almost been killed from about 3 gunfights where I've watched the rounds hit me. A guy next to me got shot. I've been shot at when I was 8. I had gangrene in my appendix that I burst in the doctor's hands. I've been in 2 car accidents I don't remember. Like, mortality is very clear in my mind. Like, I've accepted that life is short, and I think that's one of the benefits, and that's something I talk about in my book, just briefly, just like, hey guys, you need to accept that time is limited. Because if you don't, you're never going to feel that drive to just like go out and get something done. Like, you have to acknowledge that your time on this planet is limited. And the last thing you want to do is lay in your deathbed knowing that your time is up and being like, I should have done more.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Like, no way, dude. No way. Like, I want to lay in my bed and be like, I went hard. Sorry guys. Like, I left it blaze down. Like, I'm sorry for the things.
And doesn't that feel so much better? Like, from an acute standpoint, like, the days that you are just crushed yourself and you lay in bed at night and you know you put everything you have, those just feel better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And that mentality just, I mean, you get you get the benefits of working hard, but it just feels better too. Yeah. To lay it all out there and leave it all out there on the field.
Absolutely. And I think that, like, kind of from like a religious point, is like, I developed a relationship with God like when I was a kid, because I didn't know it. I didn't know it, but I was like, I would pray when things were really, really bad. And then he would always come through for me. And then it took me years to realize that, that whole time he was coming through for me. He's always like protected. Yeah. But I think that, like, you're saved if you like accept God into your life. But if you just try your best to do the things that he says to do, then you just enjoy now. Mm-hmm. And that's the gift. That's what he's trying to tell you is like, hey, I'm not telling you this because, you're going to go to hell, or like, if you know, people are trying to use the Bible against everyone. You're going to go to hell. And all like, no, dude, stop. Yeah. The reason we try to follow these rules and live the best life we can is just because it feels better. Yeah. Like when we don't cheat, when you don't gamble, when you don't act crazy and like go to, you know, hook up with strippers.
Right.
You know, if you...
Why'd you look at Darren when you said that?
He said that. You did, Sean. He looked at me. But you're right, man. You're going down this path, what you're saying, brother. Like, you know, it's the reason why we changed the podcast to the One Shot Podcast, because we only got one shot at this thing, right? So why not get up and shake off the haters, because you're going to have haters, and live your life the way you want to live it, man. And I'm so proud of you, man, because I'm listening to your story. You could have easily have given up at 12, at 14,
at 9,
at 9. Yeah,
at 16.
You had so many milestones in your life when things weren't going your way that you could have absolutely stopped. And you're telling your story right now to someone that's suffering right now, that's 17, 18 years old, man. And I'm so glad we got you on so they can hear you. They can hear the story and where you are today.
And I appreciate that, man. And like, it feels good. Like that's one thing. Like I've gotten messages like, I went through the same thing. And like, I've gotten messages where it's a picture of me and they're like, dude, we went to school together. And then they show me a picture of like 10 or 12, whatever in the school book. I was like, hey man, don't lie on the internet.
Yeah.
People are not, they're going to resonate, but they're also going to fact check. And man, it feels good to see like I'm connecting with people that like I went to school with in like elementary school that are like, dude, you were talking about feeling and like nobody's ever talked about us. And like I was going through the same thing. And I've had a guy, he was I thought this was the coolest thing. He was a professional football player and he hit me up. He's talking about his past and how he had some sexual abuse in his past and how my story kind of like resonated with his abuse, you know, and you know, thank God I didn't have sexual abuse in my past. But I always knew like that was out there. So like people that go through that, like sexual abuse, they were the benchmark for me. You know, after all this stuff I've been through, I always hung my hat on the fact that no one ever tried to like sexually assault me. And even though the opportunities were abundant, right? Because you're just a kid ready to be victimized by anyone who just decides. So I always tell myself, and that's how I stay positive is like, nobody's done that to me. I haven't had to go down that road and some poor soul has gone down that road. Right. And then now those guys hit me up and say my story resonates with them sometimes. And it's like, man, we're all connected through the trauma, you know?
Man, that's a good way to, I think, wrap this up is that right there. I think, you know, again, we knew this was going to be a wild, you know, an interesting conversation. But again, the best part about it is just your mentality today and how you've come through it and how you're inspiring other people. And that's what we hoped. And that's what we know people will get out of this. Where can people find more out about you, Sean? Where can people get more? Where can people find your YouTube channel? Obviously on YouTube, but what's your YouTube channel called?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel is the FNG Academy. And then we have a website. It's getting rebuilt right now, thefngacademy.com. Awesome. So our whole thing is just helping people get selected, and we're giving mentorship. We got a mentorship program that's dropping in about a month and a half. That's going to give people the opportunity to do one-on-one coaching, group coaching. And then we're hoping 2022 is the time that we launch open our first building. So that way we can have a store and we can have a place where people can come and we can get in-person mentorship and guidance. And really just break down that barrier. So it's like there's a lot of the special operations community that's like banging on their chest how tough they are, which, hey, they are tough. I don't take that away from them. I'm not disrespecting them in any way. We just want to be different. We want to show people that there's normal people out there that do it. They can achieve it. And you could even come from a broken past and still achieve that high level. And then hopefully I could show them that, they're even more likely to achieve it coming from that broken past. And that's something that I'm really trying to hone in right now is like, how do I convey this message? You know, 'cause it's not always easy.
You got a great message, man.
I love it. So your book, Rising Above, And then you've got another book that's hoping to come out. When are you hoping to launch that second book?
So I'm hoping by at least by the end of this year.
Awesome.
So I still gotta see if Jocko Publishing is gonna pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, great. If they don't, that's okay too. We'll just go self-publishing, and then it'll be out a little sooner probably, because then I know the timeline for that one.
Right.
Because I did the self-publishing for the first book, so we'll just go that route again if Jocko doesn't want to pick it up. But the main reason I was hoping for Jocko, and I decided before I even wrote the book that I would reach out to him and ask him to publish it, and we could publish it together, is just because he's an inspiration to me.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like, Jocko's not what I am. He's not anything like me. He's the, if you think of what right is, Jocko's gonna do the right thing always. He's not gonna be emotional. He's not gonna let anything deter him. So I use him as a guiding point when I'm not feeling the most confident, or when I'm not feeling, up to it. It's like he's my unofficial or unmet mentor.
Right.
That's a hell of a mentor. Yeah, we got his book right here, Extreme Ownership, which has made a huge impact on both of us and so many people. And we know that your second book's going to do the same.
Darren, can I ask you something before we jump off?
Come on.
Was professional football, first of all, was it fun?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I do not envy professional football players, and here's why. Because I feel like it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying to me, the thought of it, that every single game, not only is it your reputation on the line, but if you one single slip of anything, as far as injuries, and your career could take a drastic turn. And so I just feel like that is something. And this is what I want to add, like all people that have like reached the pinnacles, like you've reached, like people always want to look at you, and they do it to Joe Rogan too, as they want to look at people that have made those pinnacles, and they just want to say money. Mm-hmm. Because you've made that money, nothing else matters. Because Joe Rogan made $100 million on that deal, the media could bash him and he shouldn't care at all. Because you made professional football, you shouldn't care about anything else. You've already made it. So like, what was that like for you reaching that high at that point? And like, what would you tell somebody on the backside of what that's like? So like, because not the glory and the money, but the real life.
I love this. This is the first guest that's flipped the script.
Me. Yeah.
I love it.
I would say, man, for me, like I forget. First of all, let me say this. You said you get nervous.
This is a man that's taken bullets.
Yes, this is a man.
Been in riots.
Yes, it's been in riots. It's been in Afghanistan.
And he says football's scary.
No, look. I mean, I'm gonna put things in perspective. We played a game. It was honestly, man, it was like when I was 7, 8 years old, my son's age, I always wanted to play the game. And it was just that. It was a game. Now, everyone made it big. ESPN and all the networks, they made it big and they blow it up and they put us on these pedestals. Dude, we played a game. You didn't play a game. That was not a game. It was life. And your life depended on it. Your partner's life depended on it.
Our lives depended on it.
Our lives as Americans depended on it. Man, that's that's not a game. That's life. And I have the ultimate respect. And you would talk to any NFL player or basketball player, a pro athlete, and they'll tell you the same thing. That is a different perspective. We're just playing a game, and I'll set that there. I would say this. As far as the game itself, I don't remember a lot of plays. Like the big plays, every once in a while I remember certain things. But what I remember the most is the locker room. Mm. Like there was something about the locker room and the relationships that I built, those same relationships that I had when I came in the league at 21, 22. I have those same relationships, and we talk so much shit to each other, and the lies get bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. But that's what I remember, man. I remember more jokes than I remember plays.
Really,
the jokes that went on in the locker room, yeah.
The pressure, it wasn't like this overwhelming, immense pressure. You could actually just go out and enjoy and play.
Yeah, like because I just loved it, man. Was there pressure? Yeah, it was pressure to keep your job. There was pressure,
Yeah, no big deal, right?
Yeah, but it's the same pressure that we're both. I'm a business owner. I own two businesses. There's the same pressure there. Like I have 52 people that I got to make sure that they're fed and their families are fed and whatnot. So it's the same. And everybody that's in the corporate America has the same type of pressures. It's just blown up as far as being an athlete. So it's the same thing, man. I mean, we work, we do what we love. A lot of the guys do what we love to do. I didn't feel that pressure. I didn't feel like, oh my God. You know what pressure was to me? Pressure was my mom, single mom, 4 kids, flipping coins on a Friday to see what bill she was going to pay. That was pressure. What I did was a game, and I'm going to always say that. It was a game. I love to play it, man. I didn't feel the pressure.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. Man, I appreciate you, brother. You've been great, man. We're going to, hey, this relationship is going to continue, man, because
you're close, man. Next time you're in Dallas, hit us up, man. We would love to get together in person next time.
So at least, if not before that, at least when I do the second book tour, because I'll be in Dallas I'm hoping Mike Ritland will have me back on. Yeah. He's a military guy, so he's right by you. 100 Skills right by you. So perfect. That's 3.
Man, we got numbers, brother. Yeah, we're going to connect. Let's connect.
Perfect. Man. I love it.
All right.
That was great talking to you guys.
You too, Sean. Thanks, bro. I'm getting that IPA too. I'm about to go get one now.
Cheers, boys.
Thanks,
Cheers,
brother.
Man. Appreciate you.
I'll catch you later.
Yes, sir.